This episode is brought to you by the American Homebrewers Association, host of HomebrewCon Online, a virtual gathering of homebrewers happening this June 18th through the 20th. With an all-star lineup of speakers, HomebrewCon Online is an opportunity to enhance your brewing skills and knowledge, all from the comfort of your own home. Tune in for live seminars, demonstrations, virtual expos, meetups, and happy hours. Learn more and register at homebrewcon.org. That's homebrewcon.org. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, May 28th, 2020. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, mead maker Tim Leber shares delicious fermented beverages for the first of a two-part series of experiments. This week, we start with mead fermented with kveik, an ice cider, and an unlikely beet mead. If you go to basicbrewing.com, you can find archives of our audio and video shows. And if you go to basicbrewingshop.com, you can find our DVDs, our brewer's logbooks, and other Basic Brewing gear. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Basic Brewing and find our show page on Facebook as well. We have a cool Basic Brewing app on iTunes and Amazon.com, and we're found all over the place where fine podcasts are served up. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and thanks to everybody who is helping out, especially nowadays. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. On Monday, I posted a special bonus video for financial subscribers of all levels. If you listened to this past week's show, you know Steve's been dealing with some health issues, so we only got to produce one video podcast for May. So I wanted to make sure that our subscribers are getting their money's worth. So the video that I posted was of me making what I'm calling my Labor Day beer beef stroganoff, although I did post it on Memorial Day. Hope that didn't confuse anybody. Labor Day was, when I initially came up with the recipe. This time, though, instead of using store-bought egg noodles to pair with the beef stroganoff, I made Spätzle, or Spätzle, from scratch. Now, Spätzle is the German noodle, or, the dumpling that is usually sautéed in butter with some nutmeg and maybe some cheese added. It's incredibly easy to make, just with flour, eggs, and milk, or you could use water if you wanted to. I've been using it to make a traditional-inspired German sausage dish, along with what I called Spätzlegetti, and this stroganoff as well. So I hope that you subscribers enjoyed the video as much as we did eating the final result here in my family. According to my calculations, this is episode number 700. Holy smokes. Not bad for a podcast that I thought would play out at about 10 episodes. Many thanks to everybody who has contributed to make this thing what it is, everybody who has sent in recipe ideas, beers to try, sampled with us at HomebrewCon. This podcast is crowd-sourced. And for those who are curious, we usually take June off for family vacations and for going to HomebrewCon and such as that. And, this year, we're not going anywhere in June. We may, go to take the camper out to a campsite or something, within just a few miles of the house. But, we're not taking off on family vacations. And, I'll be here at the house attending HomebrewCon this year with HomebrewCon Online. So I've decided to go ahead and power through and keep on posting audio episodes in June. So look forward to that. So 700 episodes. And like I say, I owe it to all y'all who have contributed. I also, of course, owe a lot to our sponsors, like Dave and Desiree from High Gravity in Tulsa. I love my Warthog electric brew-in-a-bag system from HighGravityBrew.com. I was skeptical of electricity in the beginning, but now I know it's not only the future, it's the present. If you're still using propane and you are in a place financially and otherwise where you can comfortably upgrade your system to electric, you owe it to yourself to make the change. Take the pain out of propane. From 5 gallons to 2 barrels, HighGravityBrew.com has your solutions. If you're handy, unlike me, you can just get a controller and some components to maybe upgrade your current gear if you like to do things yourself. Or if you are like me and don't have those handy talents, you can choose from a wide range of turnkey systems from both Warthog, that's the high-gravity brand, but High Gravity also sells other manufacturers as well. And if you use the code EBC75BB at highgravitybrew.com, you can save $75 off your electric gear purchase. That's EBC75BB. And while you're on highgravitybrew.com, be sure to check out the amazing Build Your Own Beer page. That's at family-owned and operated highgravitybrew.com. Let's take a quick look into the mailbag. Josh from Mafra down in Victoria, Australia, writes, a few years back, you had an episode where a brewer did only red IPA for 12 months in a quest to find his perfect beer with no success. Josh says, I accidentally listened to this episode because my Spotify decided to go nuts and started playing, without my knowledge, old episodes. I brewed this beer, sort of, Josh says, did his exact grain bill but backed off on the hops, using only 30 grams of Magnum at 60 minutes, 30 grams each of Simcoe and Cascade at flameout, with a 20-minute steep. So it's just a pale red. Josh says, my God, I have to say, best beer, not only that I've ever made, best beer I've ever tasted. Wow. Thanks for that note, Josh. I appreciate that. That's awesome. It's just to show the power of the archives. I shared this note with Chris McKenzie of brewublog.com, who conducted that year of red IPA experiment on the podcast. Man, it's always fun to hear from somebody who dug up a gem from the Basic Brewing archives from way back that I haven't thought about in a while. So thanks to Josh for writing in, and congratulations. That sounds delicious. So I know that you're wondering what I'm going to brew next. Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's just say you asked. I'm planning on a Belgian-inspired triple with a little bit of a twist. I've got the ingredients, Pilsner malt, some Czech Saaz, some wheat, some golden candy syrup, and, of course, some yeast from our sponsors, Imperial Organic Yeast. For this batch, I've chosen Napoleon from Imperial. Now, Napoleon is more of a Saison yeast, but I want to try it for this triple. About Napoleon, Imperial says, this yeast is an insane wort attenuator. Napoleon will destroy the sugars in your Saison and farmhouse beers, even the ones in which most brewers' strains have no interest. When all this is said and done, Napoleon produces very dry, crisp beers with nice citrus aromas balanced by subtle black pepper phenols. Doesn't that sound delicious? You know we love Imperial Organic Yeast. They're the only certified organic yeast producer with the highest cell count of any liquid yeast producer, 200 billion cells in each of those easy open packages. I like to say my stir plate is dusty because I don't use it anymore for standard gravity 5-gallon batches. I'm not even going to use a starter for this big triple, just to see what happens. Imperial now has a recommended shelf life of up to 4 months. Check out imperialyeast.com and ask your local homebrew shop for Imperial Organic Yeast. You will love it. Okay, usually we meet up with Tim Leber at HomebrewCon, and he brings a selection of delicious meads and other fermented beverages, fermented with fun and experimental ingredients and techniques. Well, this time we had to do it online, and there is so much to taste and talk about that I divided it into 2 shows. Now, one note on this show, I was kind of hard on the fourth one that we tasted this week, the beet mead. However, I tasted it again with a fresh palate this morning when I was taking a photo for the social media. And you know what? I liked it quite a bit. It tasted completely different. I mean, the third one that we tasted really blew out my taste buds. So I'm glad that I gave it another sample this morning. And just keep that in mind as you listen to this week's show. Tim Leber, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
It's good to be here, James. It's been far too long.
Yeah, this is the first time that we've done this over the wire, as opposed to being together in a weird hotel room somewhere in conjunction with HomebrewCon. Or we were
never alone in a hotel room. There are always witnesses.
We were by the pool one time, but other than that,
pool. Yeah.
It's always been in a hotel room full of guys. So
yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to meet in Nashville this year. But you were generous enough to send a bunch of meads, and you sent 2 sets. One I shared with Steve, and unfortunately, Steve is still under the weather, such that he can't participate. But I'm sure that he will enjoy those meads greatly when he's feeling a bit more on top of things. So I appreciate your contributions again.
Oh, glad to do it. I had to get on this hot bandwagon for some of these yeasts before somebody beat me to the punch. So
we have 7 bottles in front of us.
Yeah.
Is there an umbrella that we can put over this, other than just mead experiments?
So there's the first 2 are really a pair, and it's a new thing. Then the last 3 all kind of go together, and then there's 2 in the middle that are kind of whatever. So I've got a kveik experiment, or kveik. I still can't figure out how to pronounce that. I'm going to stick with kveik experiment that I did, and that was just a case of let's see what this yeast will do in a mead under warm fermentation conditions, because mead needs to be fermented cool, around 62 degrees or 64, 65, somewhere in there. And not everybody has that ability in the summertime, especially people down south.
Mm-hmm.
So I did this kveik yeast just to see what I would get, and I hammered it, which is my habit. I want to do things to the extreme to see what's going on. And then I took half of it and added hops and some fruit to it. Then there's the ice cider I did, which I found a cheat that I think a lot of people will like. It's not a cheap cheat, but it is a cheat. And then I did beet, because somebody told me I couldn't do it and have it turn out well. And oh yeah is a pretty strong motivator. And then the last set are I was walking through the local mercado, and they have all these wonderful tropical fruits that I have never, as your basic white dude, have never really encountered before. And I thought, I've got to try some of these. And one of which I actually had in a beer years ago. There was a guy in the Kansas City Beer Meisters that used to make a beer with this, and he would never tell me where he got it, where he got the fruit. And I found it, so I had to make a mead with it. And then the last one's just kind of a mead that's been in the back of my head percolating for years. So I'll talk more in detail about what those are when we get there. But let's start with the kveik yeast, because that is it's also the lowest alcohol one in the bunch. So
yeah, you may be doing most of the talking by the end of this. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I do have my bottles as well, because I want to be able to remember what these are. The only 2 I don't have are the 2 tropicals, the naranjila and the cashew fruit, because I sent you my last 2 bottles.
Oh.
I'm going to make more. That was all I had. So the bottles should be labeled Loki Plain is the one we'll start with.
Right, and I just poured.
Yeah.
And it's a sparkling. It's got a nice head on it, and actually the head's sticking around for a little while.
Yeah, this is it's a pretty basic mead, just basic wildflower honey, more than likely Costco special. It's good, True Source certified, and it's nice honey to experiment with, because it's not going to get in the way of what you're doing. If you have orange blossom and all that, those are wonderful honeys, but you'll have trouble picking out exactly what you're doing. But this is only 7% alcohol. So,
Oh wow, it's very clean, crisp. It is. Do you know what the finishing gravity is on this?
1.
Yeah, so it's not super sweet.
Yeah.
But there is some nice honey character in there.
So we started at with this. We started at a Brix of 13.4, which is 1053 specific gravity. We ended up, like I said, at 1 specific gravity, or about 5 Brix. And it's ABV of 7%. But it's not. This was a 20-liter batch, I believe, that I split. So it's this one and the other one. It's 20 liters that I split. So what I did with this was I took my good old Johnson Control blue box temp controller and found online where you can convert it from cooling to heating. Wrap the fermenter in a Pharma wrap and put it in a couple of bags from Blue Apron because they're nice and bubbly and insulated to keep all the heat in. And I set that temp controller for 92 degrees, which for all you international fans is 33.3 Celsius.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and of course, it doesn't stay exactly there. It got as high as 98 degrees all this.
Which is around 37.
37, yeah.
I know that. That's body temperature. I know that one.
Yeah. And it ripped through this in 6 days.
Wow.
Start to finish, 6 days.
Now, this is the Loki yeast from Imperial, right?
Yes, it is.
Any starter on this?
No, it's advantage of that nice, big, pitch that they sell you. I just opened it up, poured it right in. It took off in
200
no time.
billion cells in there working for you.
Billions.
Billions and billions of cells.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, typically, I mean, if you were to, what would happen if you took the typical, say, wine yeast that you use with a mead like this, and subjected it to the same torture? What do you think would have happened?
It would have come out, first of all, it'd be very estery, but also it'd be a lot of phenols in it, because most yeast don't like that temperature, and if they are that high, they're not behaving nicely. Any that survive are kind of, it's like a toga party. They're all running around, junk's going everywhere. It makes a mess, and then they die and they don't clean up after themselves. This kveik, it fermented hard and it cleaned it up, and it cleaned it up very nicely. I mean, I get tropical flavors out of this.
Yeah, as it's warming up, it is getting a little more complex, and it's very delicate, but there's a lot going on in there. What kind of nutrient schedule did you use?
So I am a complete believer in staggered nutrient addition, converted over to Fermento. And if you are a mead maker and you're not using Fermento, you need to start using Fermento. Period. End of statement. But in the standard staggered nutrient addition, you get added about 4 times. So I go 24 hours after pitch, and then every 48 hours thereafter. So it's like, the first full day, then every other day thereafter. And I added about 4 times. Now a lot of guys are using this strain, but they all say it's high nutrient need. So it needs a lot of YAN, a lot of yeast assimilable nitrogen. And so it needs a lot of it. I got a hold of the people at Loki, at Imperial, and they said, oh, yeah, Loki is just like a beer yeast, and most beer yeasts are considered low nitrogen need. So that's how I fed it, but I only managed to add nutrients once or twice. So and then it was below 1/3 attenuation. And so, added it on the 21st of June, on the 21st. And 24 hours later, on the 22nd, it was already to 21% attenuation. 24 hours after that, it was at 47.6% attenuation. And at that point, you don't add any more nutrients. I really shouldn't have added nutrients that second time, but I added the nutrients before I did all my math because I thought, oh, there's no way this will be that done, you know. So it got all the way done in, like I said, 7 days. It started on the 21st and ended on the 27th.
Wow. And the danger to adding too much nutrient too late is you might get the flavors of that nutrient in the final product?
Yeah, the yeast can't use it at that point. So you're just throwing money into the fermenter, and then if you're lucky, it just falls to the bottom with the yeast, but usually you end up tasting it. And Fermento is better than the others because it's got a much more subtle flavor, but you can taste it if it's left in there. So, you know, now I do the math before I make my nutrient addition, you know, but you know, you gotta degas before you add that fine granulate powder to a super saturated carbon dioxide solution.
You get the Mentos and diet soda effect.
Yeah. And you'll be mopping your ceiling, or, you know, explaining to your wife why you need to go to rent the rug doctor.
And writing a letter to me for the disaster show at the end of the year.
Yeah, all that. So you got to be careful about it. But yeah, this just ripped right along. But I am really happy with this.
Yeah, that's tasty.
What do you pick up in terms of aromas and?
Well, I'm getting I don't know if it's the carbonation, but there's a tiny bit of tartness in there, maybe like a citrus tartness.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of fruitiness that I can't quite put my finger on. It's a little bit tropical, maybe peach.
Yeah, I'm telling people it's kind of like a vague tropical flavor, maybe a little lemon, a little pineapple
or apricot, maybe.
Apricot, yeah, but it's subtle. It's not in your face, but it's much more interesting and complex than if you had fermented this honey with just 71B at the strength and you know, carbonated. It'd be nice, but it'd be pretty plain Jane. This has turned out really well. So for all you that want to make mead and you live in the South, I would definitely look up Loki.
Yeah.
As a strain.
Yeah.
My next one, I'm going to try the kveiking or kveiking.
Oh yeah, the kveiking is it's a blend. So, you know, you might get some more interesting, more complex character out of that. It could be. So you took this fermented and then added the hops for the next batch, or how did you do that?
I split it, and half I just put in the secondary and let it, you know, do its little thing for a while, and the other half I added hops and passion fruit puree to.
Ooh. So
that's the one that is labeled Loki hopped. And the selection of those was based on the flavors I was getting out of the mead when I tasted it when I racked. So, and this is another one I hammered. So, I used Moitueka or
Motueka.
Motueka. I used an ounce in 10 liters, and which worked. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's completely different.
Yeah. And I added, again, a trip to the Mercado, I added passion fruit puree. So I added 14 ounces or 400 grams of passion fruit puree to it. So it's 28 grams of Moitueka hops and 400 grams of passion fruit added to the secondary.
Wow. Yeah, that's nice. It's probably hard to tell where the hops start and the the fruit ends or whatever. Yeah.
But I thought when I tasted the plain version that's real nice and tropical, and those two flavors, you know, go well together. Mm-hmm. So I thought this was perfect. And there, you would not be able to tell. I've actually served both of these to people, and they did not realize that they were the same batch that you split.
No, it's much more complex and nicely fruity. It's still very drinkable, and it's not sweet, but
No.
you get this nice clean fruit flavor. So how did you mechanically put the fruit and the hops in and deal with that process?
So I put the hops in a hop sack, tied them, and just dunked them in. The fruit, I tried to put in a bag, but this is a puree. It didn't work out so well. But I lost a little to the puree, but I think I also gained some volume from the puree. So even though I have this label as 7%, it's really not quite 7% because there was a volume increase and loss, but it's very nice in how it plays together. And I am personally not a fan of hops and mead. There are a lot of people that love to do it. I want my mead to taste like mead, and I want my beer to taste like beer.
Mm.
But I'm a fan of this.
Yeah, it's very nice.
I intend on making a big batch of just this way. Probably use a little more tropical honey, something a little more interesting, and throw it on my kegerator for summer.
Yeah, and it's also very clear. What were the clarification steps that you went through?
So my standard clarification is 2-stage, but on these volumes, it didn't really seem like enough. So I just used some liquid isinglass that I got from the homebrew shop, and I measured it to the amount needed and used that. But if you look at the bottom of the hop, there's a pretty good layer of shittles.
Oh, if there's a dusting.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a technical term, shittles.
That's a German word, right?
Yeah, it's a German word, yeah. But it's nice, and even if it's hazy, if it is stirred up, it doesn't affect the flavor a whole lot, but nice and crystal clear like this, it is a beautiful mead.
Oh, that's lovely. And it's very and it's not clingy at all. It leaves your palate. As soon as you swallow, practically.
Yeah,
it's just very nice and refreshing, and it would be lovely on the keg in the summertime.
Yeah, it's just one of those meads that actually, it was an idea. It wasn't really even a fully formed idea when I did it, but it worked out very well. And I think this particular combination of yeast and hops and fruit just play so well together. Because the reason I don't like hops and mead is so often the hops are kind of jarring and out of place with the character of the honey or what else is going on in there. Somebody will throw Simcoe into a delicate floral honey, and I like Simcoe hops, but it's just kind of, hits you over the head, and it just kind of throws it all off. But the character of this, how this all fits together, makes a really nice whole.
Yeah.
But again, it shows how you can make a batch of mead and you can split it up and do different things with it and have a good variety without having a lot more effort. So I'm not a big fan of 1 gallon batches. We're going to talk about a couple, but as a rule, I don't like it because I think you're doing as much work to do a gallon as you're doing 5 gallons or 4 liters for 20. But some people are like, well, I don't want 5 gallons of the same thing. Okay, well, split it up afterwards.
Yeah.
Do other things afterwards. And if you mess it up, then at least you've got you maybe have regular stock you can blend back with it. If you split it 5 ways and leave 1 plain and you overdo something, you can use the plain that you've got left to kind of blend it back and kind of fix it. So it's a good way to try new flavors, try experiments, and also maybe learn the fine art of blending mead.
Yeah.
Which is, advanced level mead making that not a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, I think I do the 1 gallon batches still, but I'm doing like the malt samplers or the hop samplers, or like I did a 1 gallon brew in a bag batch of Captinus, which is this Lithuanian oven beer. And I wanted to do that on this very small scale because it's more manageable, first of all, and I could do it in the kitchen. I could do it in my oven, and I can break it down into a very small batch. And you just kind of get proof of concept there, because I was doing this brew in a bag, and as far as I know, nobody else had ever done it. And I wanted to see, does it even work? Is it even worth trying on a larger batch? So in extreme conditions and for extreme measures, the 1 gallon batch is practical. But it's probably a lot more practical, especially in mead, to brew a bigger batch and then split it afterwards. And we've done that before. Steve and I have done that before with yeasts and with the chilies and fruits and things like that.
Yeah.
So are we ready to move on to the bottle number 3?
Yes. Yes, we are. So let me rinse my glass so I can get to the next thing.
I've got little plastic cups, and that way I can also go back and sample the previous batches too.
So I brought 2 glasses, so I'm going to leave one with that hopped mead, because the more I drink that, the more I like it.
Yeah, it's tasty. And I can't wait to, people are really excited about this kveik stuff, and summer's coming up and people are going to be experimenting with it more. And I've got some of the kveiking in the fridge, down in the beer fridge. So, and it's year round. The Loki is year round, as well as the kveiking from Imperial.
Yeah.
Well,
if you're down south and you've got those hot days, you can with this kveik, you can just spark it out in the garage and.
Oh yeah, I set mine out on the front porch a couple, 3 times.
Yeah. But hot summer for us in Seattle is 85 degrees.
Yeah.
So I was just hammering it. Now they all say about these yeasts that you ferment them cooler than 95 degrees, and they're very clean. But I wanted that character. So I believe the next thing on our list is the ice cider. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So this is my cheat. I've wanted to make an ice cider for a while, because if you ever see them at the stores, they are nice, but they are expensive. Really expensive for an ice cider. And I'm cheap. So I had a hard time with.
First of all, explain the concept of an ice cider.
Okay, so an ice cider is made one of 2 ways. So sometimes they will make it where they ferment a cider and then freeze concentrated, a la an ice bock.
Right.
And sometimes they'll make it where they freeze concentrate the juice ahead of time and ferment that. So like in Ontario and Quebec, they'll leave the apples on the trees till they freeze, and then crush them and make the ice cider and pull the ice off. So I've wanted to do this, and I've tried a couple of times and had failure. And I was going over my notes from NHC several years back, where I sat in an ice cider class, and I had always tried to do the fermented then freeze concentrated. And the guy says, "Oh, you can just take your ice, your cider, freeze it beforehand, and ferment it, but just be sure you get it to about 33 bricks." Well, I was in the store and I walked by and I saw the little can of Treetop, and I thought, hey,
that's already concentrated.
That's frozen concentrated apple juice. Why am I trying to stick a gallon of cider in the freezer, and pour it out, So I took the can home, and I've got a nice high range bricks refractometer, and it checked it out. It was like 41.5 bricks.
Now, what is that in specific gravity?
Oh, heck. I do not know.
No, I've got a thing here.
Yeah. It's, well,
refractometer, bricks of wort, and what do we say? What did you say? 33?
41.5. 41.5 bricks.
41.5 bricks is 1179.
Yeah. They say they want you to around, this guy was saying you should be around 33.
So 33 is 1.138.
Yeah. I did whatever I was going to do with the apple juice. And then I thought, these little cans of Treetop are expensive for the thing. And we've got a store here at every city's got one of these. It's like a low rent Costco or Cisco or something. They sell to restaurants, but they're also open to the public. And they have all kinds of, I go in there to get, sauce cups to use to measure out ingredients. You're measuring out hops or something and you're doing tenths of a gram. And they had pint jugs of frozen concentrated apple juice like you would use to make apple juice for food service.
Yeah.
And it also tested out at 41.5 bricks. And I looked at the ingredient list and it says apples and nothing else. So I'm thinking, this is even better because it costs half as much for twice the amount. You pay half as much as you do for a can of Treetop. I mean, so to me, this was like no brainer. So I bought a bunch and the people thought I was nuts because I walked up with like 10 of these cartons or whatever it was. Because I made a 10-liter batch, which is 2.6 gallons. And I added just enough. Actually, I went out and bought regular cider and added just enough regular cider to settle my bricks down to 35.
Wow.
Which was a 1.149 original gravity. And thought, this looks great. I could throw some yeast at it. And if this doesn't work, I can always, have a party and serve it to people, thin it out and serve it as apple juice or something. So, away I go to let this thing ferment. And it actually the fermentation went very well. It's sweet. I mean, if you taste it, it's.
Oh yeah. Now, when I did the freeze concentrated apple cider one time, and I think they call it Applejack.
Applejack, yeah.
Yeah. But this is delicious. This is really
yeah.
I mean, what I made with the ice cider stuff or the Applejack stuff, I mean, it was okay. It was drinkable and it was interesting and it had a kick to it. This is I almost want to drizzle this on ice cream. Because it says on the label here that the finishing gravity was 1053.
Yeah, and it came out to 13.4% alcohol, and it only
there is no flavor of alcohol in this whatsoever. It's just a super. And I just wonder if you'd given it to me and said, what fruit is this? I don't know. It's so concentrated and sweet. I don't even know that I would have recognized it as apple. It's just so intensely, maybe it's so intensely apple that maybe it would have gone just right through the scale.
Yeah, it's that nice, it's the color of bourbon or scotch. It is that deep amber.
It's a hot
color.
scotchy.
Yeah.
It's a cold, hot scotchy. It's when you pull off the first runnings of that wort,
yeah,
and it would be about this,
yeah,
and then you put booze in it. You put some bourbon in it. It's that that deliciously sweet but boozy character. This is boozy without tasting boozy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
sneaky.
It's not hot at all.
Now, I did add a little oak to this near the end.
I was going to say it smells oaky to me. I wish I had said that before you said it. I would have got a point. But yeah, it does smell oaky.
Yeah, I used medium plus Hungarian oak cubes, which kind of split the difference between American and French oak.
Mm.
So I'm starting to like that pretty well.
Wow.
that oak. But I like this because this whole thing was, 10 liters of this, or just over 2.6 gallons, cost as much as one bottle of, one of these half bottles of ice cider you go to the store and get. Because they're like, the ones I see for the good ones are like $50-$60.
Wow.
So I just hit this with QA23 yeast because it's got a nice flavor, and I like the way it works. And it did a real nice job. It was a slow, kind of steady ferment. I did dose her with some nutrients along the way.
Now, did you make a starter with the yeast, or just have a bunch of yeast?
So the other thing I've done since the last time we spoke is I've gone to dry yeast for most of my meads and ciders, and I use GoFirm to rehydrate. So GoFirm is designed specifically to rehydrate. In the old days, just open that yeast and sprinkle it over the top and it'll be fine. Well, that does a lot of osmotic shock to the yeast, and so you'll lose about half of the yeast in that sprinkle just right away, just dead. So GoFirm is from the wine industry, and it's designed to help rehydrate the yeast. So you heat the water to a specific point, and it's based on how much yeast you're using, which I calculate to the gram, in grams per liter. And it's like 0.25 grams per liter or 0.3 grams per liter, depending on the strength of the must. So I calculate that out, and then I add that, and it's like 20 times that in water, and like 1.5 times that or 1.25 times that. I've got all the math down in a spreadsheet somewhere because my brain is not perfect for that kind of thing. But I use the GoFirm, and if you follow the directions, after about 20 minutes, you get a really nice, creamy, ready to go yeast. And if I don't have fermentation in 24 hours, I start worrying with this. Normally I tell people if they're doing it the old way, 24, 48 hours, you can worry at 36. Now this stuff using GoFirm really helps things out. And of course, like I said, you use dry yeast, you've got a lot more variety in terms of the kind of wine yeast you can get if you go with dry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I use that. And it's a great product. All kinds of places sell it. I'm getting ready to buy another supply, but again, I'm upping my game a little bit, so I'm probably going to end up buying like 2.5 kilos of it next time I go buy it. The UPS man must think I'm kind of odd. In the last month and a half, he's delivered 4 pails of honey and a kegerator.
It's quarantine rules now.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad I poured just a small sample of this because I'm going to finish the sample. It's just so tasty. It's very, very sweet.
It is, but it doesn't taste as sweet as the gravity would indicate because there's all that fruit acid in there. All that malic acid helps clean out. So it's sweet, but it's not cloying.
No, it's very drinkable.
It's not like drinking, a really sweet, like flat Coke or something,
So you didn't put any kind of acid blend or anything like that in this?
No. There are a few little tricks and turns I added, to help, help the yeast along, but no acid blend or anything. That's all completely from that concentrated juice. And the nice thing about it is those concentrates are made industrially, and so they're controlled. So if one, container is 41.5 bricks, they're all going to be 41.5 bricks. It's what that manufacturer makes. So you can get into the habit of being able to do this and be able to repeat it, because again, this is another one that I'm going to definitely repeat, although you don't need a lot of this at any one time. No. This is a romantic dinner in front of the fireplace kind of product.
You know what this is liquid caramel apple.
Yeah.
Because I am getting the apple flavor in there now, but it's got that caramel flavor with it, and with the wood in there, you get a little bit of the stick too.
Yeah, just a little, but it needed the vanilla notes from the oak to kind of round everything out.
Mm-hmm.
The oak that's what I like about oak is it adds roundness.
Yeah,
to a mead.
It's nice. It's just a hint in there, just to say is that oak, and in some applications that's what you need. It's not like taking a swig and saying that's oak. This is just like there's a little accent of something in there. Like adding a little bit of cinnamon to a recipe or something like that. It's just a little bit of what is that kind of a thing going on.
Yeah, it's like when you add vanilla to something you bake. You don't really want to go, vanilla, but it just rounds everything out, makes it all nice and
rich,
smooth and rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm real happy with it.
That is a different animal, and wow, that's really good.
And it is cheap. It makes this product in the reach of homebrewers. Now, it is not the cheapest batch you're going to make, but you don't need a lot of it. Every bottle I have of this is bottled in half wine bottle or beer bottles.
Yeah.
I didn't do a full-size wine bottle of this anywhere.
No.
I think I packaged one bomber to take to my homebrew club where we're all going to pass it around and everybody's going to have a couple of sips, because if you're driving, you don't need more than a couple of sips.
No. Now the next one is the beet one.
Yeah, the beet. Yeah. So this is I call it Little Jake's Mead It and Beat It. So I'll explain the name first. There's or at least used to be a barbecue joint in Kansas City called Little Jake's Eat It and Beat It. Had like 6 stools in it. It was downtown. It was really good barbecue, but they wanted you to eat and get out so somebody else could get in. So I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the Beer Meisters at HomebrewCon, probably in Portland. And I can't remember his first name. Michael Crane, I believe. He has a brewery now, but he used to make a beet beer. And somebody said, well, you couldn't do that with a mead. And I thought, okay.
Challenge taken.
You didn't realize you just challenged me, but and of course they're probably never going to taste the result, but this is the result. And the funny thing is, I really don't like beets, but I like this mead.
Now that it's brown, I expect.
Yeah,
you expect beets to be red, mainly because they're usually pickled, right? You usually see a jar of pickled beets, and they're purple or red.
Yeah,
this is brown.
Yeah, when it was real young, it was it was exactly the color you would expect. It has faded over time, but the flavor has not.
Now this I would describe as earthy.
Yeah, it's that classic beet descriptor, earthy, which is a polite way of saying dirt.
Literal earthy.
Yeah.
But not unpleasant.
No. I roasted the beets, till they were tender, and sliced them and threw them into the secondary. But I treated this like it was a red wine. So I used a red wine yeast and used honey with it, of course. And just let it kind of do its thing. And it was a beautiful color, but it was too earthy for me. And of course, like I said earlier, I don't like beets. This is mainly I'll show you kind of project.
It's a spite mead.
Yeah. A surprising number of things I do are actually on that list, because people tell me, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And, I like to experiment. I like to, see what can be done and what can't be done. And if you're thoughtful about what you're doing and how, you can actually get away with a lot. Oh, the other thing I did with this, I meant to bring this up earlier, was I actually this is a Bochet
Oh,
mead. So I caramelized the honey for about 6 hours,
okay.
which gave it a notes of toasted marshmallow and a little hint of burned. And so this came from an idea. I was in Vancouver with somebody from Van Brewers. And it wasn't the normal guys I hang out with when I'm in Vancouver. But we were in a restaurant. They were serving a caramelized honey with, it was a beet salad with caramelized honey and goat cheese. And I really like that flavor combination. Although not even I am going to try goat cheese mead.
So I challenge you.
Yeah. Like I said, not yet. But so I did caramelize a good portion of the honey to kind of give it that kind of marshmallowy, toasty flavor. And I think that also plays nicely into the flavor of the beet.
Yeah, it's when you're toasting marshmallows for your s'mores and they catch on fire a little bit and then you drop it in the dirt. That's what
Well, guilty as charged. There is one other thing I did, because even with that I didn't really care for it too much. But I thought, well, what goes well with beets? And so it was orange zest and tarragon got added into the second one. Now, you can kind of taste the orange a little bit, but you can't really taste the tarragon, which has a nice licorice flavor. It's actually one of my favorite herbs. But what it did was, again, it kind of rounded things out, smoothed the edges and gave it a more interesting complexity than just dirt and marshmallow.
Now, the Bochet, as it warms in the little cup here, the Bochet is coming through a lot more. You get those caramelized, as you say, kind of burned flavors, a little bit of, toffee and a tiny bit of coffee in there as well.
Yeah.
But there's the honey sweetness there as well that, kind of balances that out. I'm going to be real honest with you, Tim, that this is not my favorite, but it's not bad. You know what I'm saying?
No,
I'm still drinking it.
I completely agree with you, and I am not offended at all that this is not the favorite mead I've given you, ever. But I think it shows an interesting thing of you don't have to stick to the normal thing. Everybody makes a berry mead or, a peach mead or a cherry mead. There's a lot of things, a lot of ruts people get stuck into. And not only was this to show somebody that you could do this, but it's also to show that you can go outside of those normal ranges and find something, and do something and do it well.
Right.
Now, I had a friend of mine tell me this was the best beet mead they've ever had in their life. And it's also the only beet mead they've ever had in their life. But I have another friend whose wife is a vegetarian and doesn't actually like a lot of mead because she thinks it tastes of nothing but sugar.
Mm.
It's all sweet. She's not a big alcohol person anyway. But she tried this, and she really liked it. And she told me that it really showed the character and the beauty of what a beet can be. And I got this vegetarian lecture out of the deal. But nothing wrong with being a vegetarian, folks. I'm not meaning to imply that. I am not one. But, again, the idea is you don't have to, walk the same path that everybody else walks. You can find something or just have a wild idea and just try it. At the end of the day, all you've lost, especially if you go down to a smaller batch, this was 10 liters, which is about as small as I like to work. But if you go down to, 4 liters or 5 liters, it's a gallon or so. Try something like this, do it. And if you don't like it, you can always cook with it. You know, you can always use it to deglaze a pan, you know, when you're making, I'm serious, you know.
And when next time you're frying up some beets,
Yeah.
pull out this mead. Well, Tim, I think we talked in the beginning that this was a lot to bite off in one episode, and I think that this may be a good pausing point.
Okay.
And you know, I get some water.
Yeah. Well,
we'll pause until next time, and
we are going to shift gears radically.
Yeah, we're gonna stay tuned. Tune in next time for more fun stuff with Master Mead Maker, Mr. Tim Leber. Thank you, thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I've already got you drunk, and we're not done yet.
Thanks again to Tim. Part 2 is next week in June, when we are continuing to post episodes. So stay tuned for that. Tim will share some meads with fun fruits integrated. And those, spoiler alert, those were delicious as well. And also tons of good tips from an experienced mead maker. Again, I was pretty hard on that beet mead, but on a fresh tasting this morning, it was really good. So I'm looking forward to sampling the rest of that bottle. It was very complex with the sweetness from the honey in there, the dark notes of that bouquet, and the spices as well. Not nearly as much dirt as, as last night. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to James at basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check out that at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio, and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.